Before I started listening to Sleep Token, I actively avoided them for quite a long time because I looked at it from the outside that this was, it was a lot of work. And it turns out I was right. I have maintained since the very beginning of diving into this band that the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. And that includes journeys of self-discovery, not just how you dive into a band that on the surface write, funky little songs, sometimes heavy songs that are genre bending and move between different styles. And then you dive into a bit more and you're like, oh, that's quite catchy. And then you realize, there's lore attached to it as well. Oh, and the lore is associated with Greek mythology. And then there's alchemy. And then there's runes. And then there's all this fucking shit that you weren't ready for. And I wasn't ready for it. And I also understand why people find Sleep Token, to an extent, a bit cringe. People find the emotion on stage a little bit unsettling. They find maybe the fan base a little bit too intense. Maybe they don't like that they have to dive into it in order to get more out. And I can rather understand that. Some people just want to listen to songs and go, that was a cool song. Moving on. So I can understand to an extent why some people think Sleep Token is quote unquote cringe. But cringe, just like any art, is a relative word. What is cringe to one person is not to another. For example, a lot of people think it's cringe that people on Saturdays watch 22 men run around a pitch kicking a ball of wind around, and they're all paid preposterous amounts of money. A lot of people find that cringe. They find it cringe that you would spend your weekly wages betting on if that guy's going to punch that guy harder in a ring or an octagon or whatever. A lot of people find it cringe that you should push down your feelings and emotions all of your life and not talk about it and never really resolve some of your unresolved issues until you hit your 40s or 50s and you have a stroke or you have a heart attack, and maybe you should have just fucking gone to therapy. Maybe that's a bit cringe. So cringe is relative. And as a rule, I don't yuck anybody else's yum because you're going to die. You may as well enjoy some fucking shit along the way. But what that leads to, eventually, is conflict. And that is what Higher, I think, is all about. It is people who are on the different ends of a spectrum, people who are so far removed from what one person or one deity wants compared to what one man or deity wants. It is that conflict that can only be resolved in, when you have an irresistible force and an immovable object and they bash together over and over again, eventually high energy, high emotion, it comes together and something has to break. Quite often, an explosion. And how that explosion manifests itself can be in a bunch of different ways. It can be in arguments. It can be in physical violence. It can be in sex. It can be, how are we going to find this resolution? And does this conflict actually turn us on a bit? Does it get us high? Or does it take us higher? In order to illustrate this a little bit better, I'd like to take a look at what is known as the visible light spectrum. So on one side, we have a red, let's call it scarlet, shall we? And that red gives way, once it moves out of visible light, into infrared. Now, we're not so concerned about infrared today, but going to the other end of the spectrum, where we get to violet, we are concerned about moving into the high energy light that we can't see, known as ultraviolet. Now, if you were to take the visible light spectrum that's in its flat scale and wrap it round, of course, violet and scarlet would be next to one another. But in this respect, we're more looking at what the symbolism of those colours is. Scarlet, so many times, is represented in films, modern media, as a metaphor for blood. When we talk about dripping scarlet, when we talk about you've got scarlet on you, that means that it's blood. On the other end, ultraviolet is something high energy above where we can see in the light spectrum. It is, if you like, slightly ethereal. In a way, to quote Thundercats, it's sight beyond sight.
Sword of omens, give me sight beyond sight.
What's interesting is that blood actually can't be seen under a UV light. It has to be mixed with something like, I think, fluorescent in order to make it glow. It can't be seen in the same way that you would do normally with a black light when you're looking for the, fluids. And so scarlet itself represents the human. It represents the ability to bleed. It represents the human versus the angel, if you like. UV, that is above what we can see. That is in some way ethereal. And that rather adds as quite a good representation for perhaps the vessel, the man, in love with or worshipping a deity called Sleep in the musical theatre production that is called Sleep Token. And if you've never watched one of my videos before, I do try to take a rather analytical view on all of Sleep Token's stuff. I want to look at it like a piece of theatre, a piece of art that can be interpreted in a bunch of different ways. And also, my interpretations, as I always say, could be complete bollocks. We often talk about on stream, and in fact, if you do ever want to join us, the information will be down there. Twitch has just gone crazy this year, and we do lots of deep dives into Sleep Token live gigs, etc. If you want to join us there, that would be lovely. And if you don't, do what you want. Free range human. I'm not your mum. We often talk about the man in the mask, maybe watching one of these videos, kicking his legs and giggling, going, "That's not right. That's not right. That's not right." Oh, you little twat. Because it doesn't matter. Because it doesn't matter what our interpretation is. It's just there to interpret. And if you like, the whole raison d'etre of Sleep Token was self-exploration, taking a piece of art, taking a medium and interpreting it your own way. And like I always say, my interpretations, or even my lack of interpretations sometimes, are designed to sit alongside yours. I am not the professor at Sleep Token University. I am just processing this and enjoying this as what will go down as, I don't know, maybe one of the most significant bands that I've ever listened to in real time in my life. We're here to enjoy, and in a way, we are here to worship. I am aware that we are part of the story as well in kind of a weird way, because if indeed this is a vessel spreading the message of a deity called Sleep that we refer to because no human tongue can actually express what they are. It's like Alanis Morissette in Dogma.
She can rebuild you. She has the technology. She can make you better, stronger, faster.
If indeed the whole message, the whole reason behind this is to spread the word of sleep, the gospel of sleep, again, in the musical theatre production that is Sleep Token, well, we're doing it. Think of all the hundreds of thousands, millions of views on TikTok where I talk about Sleep Token. Aren't we part of the game? Aren't we, just by being here now, actually actively participating in the worship, in spreading the word of sleep? I don't know, could be a load of bollocks. But in that act of worship, perhaps we are exalting the deity. Perhaps we are driving all of this higher. I mean, literally. And that brings us, of course, to track 5 on 2019's Sundowning, Higher, a song of conflict. And I think it can be interpreted in two very different ways. And they're kind of obvious. Is this the voice of Sleep for the first time really talking back? After all of EP1, EP2, is this for the first time really Sleep going, actually, I'd like to say something now? Or is it still Vessel fighting with the concept, fighting with, why do you not give me the same thing I give you? Why do you not want the same thing? Why when we're together is it fabulous? Why when we're apart do I think that this is never going to work? And again, these could just be songs written by the man behind the mask about a lover. Maybe he's been jilted. Remember, all of this, man, mask, piano, pants, underpants for the Americans, sat at home writing this in his back room or his studio or wherever with his mate, the one who loves paradiddles. Each of these songs could be, from his perspective, just that, just a conflict in a relationship. Maybe he is, as we've alluded to before, maybe he's the booty call. Maybe he's the one who, lays down that decent pipe, and so she likes having him there in the evening, and then in the daytime, it's, well, we don't really talk about you during the daytime. Oh, him? Oh, no. Oh, no, I don't, no. I've spoken to him a couple of times, but, he definitely hasn't been inside me. And I know that Higher is on a lot of people's top 10 favourite songs in Sleep Token's catalogue in general. So I'm not going to waffle on too much. In fact, we're going to take a look at the sigil that is part of the visualizer for the video of Higher. And then we're going to get to it. As always, we are using this tremendous publicly available Sundown Sigils breakdown. It'll be linked in the description below. And full credit is not to me. This people far more intelligent put this together. But it is very useful just for setting the scene before we see the visualizer. So a bit more of a vertical sigil on hire. And let's take a look at the first one. All of these are linked, by the way, to alchemical symbols. Indeed, if you would like to research more about alchemy, I do think that you would get a tremendous more out of Sleep Token. Since I've started delving into Greek mythology and alchemy, goodness me, the things it's thrown up have been fucking mind-blowing. So in this we have the first alchemical symbol there. Also, these are variations of alchemical symbols, not strictly exactly, and this is rather why the point of this document exists. So number one here, we have sediment. In this context, we're looking at the dregs that settle at the bottom of liquids. That's a common theme we've had so far with the sigils, is that over the alchemical process, something is given off, but something still remains. We haven't even touched on any of the Jungian psychology when it comes to hire yet. We will obviously dive a little bit into that later on, but it does mean that in that act of individuation, in that magnum opus, in trying to turn lead into gold, in trying to turn shit into brilliance, that something gets left behind. We rather lent into that a little bit with levitate, in that one character potentially is levitating above. One character can ascend while the other is left behind. Number two, we've had this before, precipitate. In alchemy, precipitation is a process, and in quote here, in which solid matter is created by a chemical reaction and falls out of the solution. The descent of a substance out of a solution. The precipitate descends to the bottom of the flask. Number three here, commonly used before. Typically the symbol for salts line ends even within the circle, but there are several instances where it extends further. The same symbol can also be used for sulfur and spirit of wine as well. And then number four, a new one, a year. I really think I can just leave that without anything further. So a year, we've talked at length about choices that have been made with numbers and choices that have been made with the cyclical nature of things. We also must address the fact that this album is called Sundowning. It's called Sundowning because that is a disorder that exists alongside dementia. When the sun goes down towards the end of the day, the person who is suffering from sundowning syndrome starts to become unsettled. It can manifest itself in a bunch of different ways, whether it be violence towards people who are closer than violence to themselves, whether it be unease, whether it means a lack of ability to sleep, but rather the night comes down like heaven for people suffering with sundowning syndrome, in that it is the release. It is the release from consciousness. When one moves into unconsciousness, maybe there one finds, or indeed the patient finds, peace. So we got a year there as number four. And then number five, we have had this symbol pop up a few times. Once again, I'm still not entirely certain what this one is. It's rapidly becoming the bane of my existence, says the author. And the extra here, the added bits on the curve of precipitate, could be a stylization choice. It creates another symbol, but I haven't been able to locate it as of yet. I always think it's worth just touching on the sigil before we dive into the song proper, and that's exactly what we're going to do now. From 2019 Sundowning, track 5, this is Higher.
You say you won't begin again. Capitulate and let me in, 'cause I am a fire and you are dry as bone. You are taking your time, you are killing me slow, and I know we instigate, go back and forth, lacerate, 'cause you can remember.
It's another very patient build.
Only when you're alone, I am granting you more than the debt that I owe, 'cause I look for scarlet and you look for ultraviolet.
Musically, it sounds like a chorus of people.
We are exhausted by all this pretending, we just can't resist the violence. And you need the melody, I only need the silence.
lyrics are incredible. I can't wait to dive into them.
Each time we battle, the blood and the fury takes us a little higher.
And one of Two's best performances on the drums at this point as well. It's that drone of a... What are we in? E minor? I love those little repetitions. When there isn't ritual in the lyrics, sometimes there's repetition and ritual in the music. Oof. It just gently opens out. And goes back down small again.
You still refuse to shelter me, as I am a danger.
Somebody walking there.
You're a long way from home. You are one among
With their dog.
many, but you're now on your own, and
I love that.
the way you love
That vocal layering.
me when I
Maybe it's two voices coming together.
you can remember only when you're alone.
Because who owes who the debt?
More than the debt that I
Gosh, this is good. So well constructed. A piano line mixed in the background as well. Beautiful. Firstly, I think one of the things I have to touch on, because I have so much respect for this young man as a drummer, just how phenomenal Two's performance is on this record, and indeed in every live performance I've seen as well, particularly as we move into... It's difficult to say what is a... Well, we know what the verses are here, but what is the actual chorus? But there is a moment about halfway through where it quietens all the way down and he moves into... fuck it, I'm just going to show you the Drumeo one, because this is... If you've never seen this before, utterly phenomenal.
I'm granting you more than the debt that I
The way he speaks through the cymbals in particular. Gosh, it's good. Almost pulls the... Listen, you can't tell me that that isn't an octopus in a Sleep Token mask. I mean, the way that I've spoken about it a lot. I've spoken about it a lot in the past about how the expression. It's a lyrical way of playing the drums, where Vessel speaks behind two whispers. But I don't mean that obviously, he's making a lot of noise on that kit, but the way he uses the cymbals punctuates it. It gives us a musical, lyrical quality even behind all of the legit lyrics at the front, the other orchestration. I mean, it's no wonder he's nominated for so many drumming awards this year. It really is next level. One of the things I do like as well, that is a feature in a lot of Sleep Token songs, is the droning nature of some of the guitar lines, or just the repetition. We get that E just through almost, 45 seconds of the first verse. We get that one E note droning in the background, that repetition against the rhythm. Little things like that, although very, very small in the mix, they become almost like earworms. After a while, you hear it in the song when you're not deliberately listening for it. And I think that's the way that the orchestration and the musicality of a lot of these Sleep Token songs is just so exceptional.
You say you won't.
So let's take a little dive into that musicality.
Let me in.
We just have the knock of two notes at the beginning of this on one presumes a down-tuned 8-string guitar, although I think this is in E minor. So for those of you who don't know, I also have a Ko-fi page, a members page as well, where after I do each one of these videos on a weekend, the next week I will release a video where I break down from more of a vocal coach, a vocal perspective, the isolated vocals from the performances. If you'd like to dive into all of them, I do them for each of the videos. You can become a member on Ko-fi, or don't. Again, do what you want. Free range human. But yeah, if you want more of this, you know where it is.
I am granting you more than the debt that I owe, 'cause I look for scarlet and you look for ultraviolet.
I think there's been either one of the most phenomenally belty top line octave above vocal performances there, or maybe it's been pitch shifted all the way up, but what we're getting is a top line over the top there, and then a change in the reverb, a change in the delays in order to make it sound, it gives it more of a choral effect rather than a single voice.
We are exhausted by all this pretending, we just can't resist the violence.
There's a lower line there as well.
You need the melody, I only need the silence. But each time we battle, the blood and the fury takes us a little higher.
Now, later in the song, there is an argument, I would say an argument that when the two voices come in together, that possibly that's exactly what it is. There are times, particularly at the end of the second verse, where I think
you're
one could...
a long way from home. You are one among many, but you're now on your own. And I
there.
The way you look at me when I am not understood.
So I have a feeling about this.
Only when you're alone, I am granting you more than the debt that I owe.
Now, obviously, we can only do so much to isolate these vocals using technology, but I feel that when those voices come, I hate. It feels like we've had maybe a conversation where two separate voices have been talking to one another. But at that moment, it feels like, almost like Jaws or The Offering, where there has been circling around like two pugilists, two boxers, two fighters before they realize that they're going to battle. They've been checking each other out. They've been squaring each other up. And then there's this moment where they both kind of come together and they both admit, right, we think the same thing here. With that doubling up of the voice, I can't help but, I don't know.
The way you look.
I hate the way you look at me when that could be from both perspectives, from either perspective, and it does feel like it rather comes together, that maybe we've had one voice, maybe we've had another voice, and then they're agreeing. They're both saying, I hate the way you look at me when I'm misunderstood. It feels like it's a coming together of the characters in that moment. And again, that is just based on how the vocal delivery has been designed, George Lever's production, and indeed the choices that were made in the studio for where we should add harmony, where we should add doubling, where we should add octave lines. Why do that? There's always a reason behind it. At least in my opinion, I believe there is a reason behind it. Let's just drop back in for this drum pickup. So naughty. There's that one note. Slightly disconcerting in the background. Also, why the melting in the visualizer as well. Now it's starting to open out. It opens the hi-hats. Breathes more, slightly more guitar line coming through in the background. And then again, as is Vessel's want, as is Sleep Tokens, as is suddenly taking the dynamics out of it and taking us back to one voice speaking. Whose that is, we can talk about in the lyrics in a moment, but we suddenly come back to not the original first verse, but certainly a reduction in the dynamics, so it gives us a different sonic feeling to this.
You still refuse to shelter me, as I am a danger.
No, we do. We take it all the way back to the first verse. Just the guitar and the voice until this. Kind of almost tribalistic drums underneath. I'm going to stop it. Don't we know what I mean? The line that leads us into the ascension, if you like, out of the second verse is, I am granting you more, or granting, and that's what's quite interesting about a lot of this vocal performance as well, is that we've rather landed somewhere across the Atlantic with the choices of how Vessel is saying some of these. Like, I'm from Newcastle, so I would say grant. I'm granting you more than the debt that I owe. In the South, it would be granting. With that unnecessary R sound in it. I would say that. I'm from the North. But in America, it's definitely granting. And so Vessel has done quite a good job, particularly over Sundowning, of somehow flying over the Atlantic between the UK and America and picking where he's using phonetics, American pronunciation and UK pronunciation as well. But he just gets to this line, which is, I'm granting you more than the debt that I owe. And the debt that I owe, if you like, is the predominant sentence in this song. It's going to be repeated at the end with the screams, the debt that I owe. So whose is this fucking debt? Because one can make an argument for either, I think, and particularly if one is going to go back to Nazareth, where potentially the character, Vessel, was convinced to do something terrible by the character of Sleep, and then they were comforted, and then there was a lot of gaslighting went on, because I think gaslighting is happening in this song as well. Again, we'll get to that in the lyrics in a moment. But it's interesting that he chose to, I'm granting you more than the debt that I owe, into that kind of like run on the melody line, and that's where the song really starts to open out. Here. The swirling harmonies in the background, right, swirling melodies in the background, rather. Again, that repetition of the very first line, you say you won't begin again. You won't begin again. It's going over and repeated. We're into that ritualistic territory, which is so prevalent in Sleep Token songwriting. The repetition, the worship, just like we do in churches, no matter what your denomination is, no matter what your religion is, no matter where you worship, in numerous religions, all religions, I think there is repetition. It is kind of like, you know, I alluded to before that people find it funny when people go to I fucking love going to watch football. My mum thinks it's mental because she views it as like the new church. And in a way, a lot of these arenas, these stadiums, these sporting events have become a new church. We chant the same things together every single fucking week. We do that because it is camaraderie, it is support, and in a way, it's worship. There's an oi there. Ultraviolet. That's that piano line coming through in the background. Just hear the little hits, the punctuation's choosing. Phenomenal. There's crunch. So there's distortion and crunch on that as well. Now, when there's been a distorted voice, as a great many people allude to or have opinions about on Sleep Token, is when it's a distorted voice, perhaps it is the voice of sleep. I think we'll get to the perspectives about where it's coming from in a moment. But that idea that we're getting this, not only are we going to get a fantastic fucking screaming vocal performance that would have torn the arse out of my chords, but it's very carefully produced. There is a choice made there so that there is an air of aggression. There is a tinge that something is going to happen here. And of course, a lot of you will already know my opinions of when Sleep Token talk about battle, it means, you know,
pop, knob, and fanny.
Or bums or other orifices, whatever. I'm not going to judge you. Put it where you want. I don't care. But if we're going to battle, then that is where we are going higher. Because you get an endorphin release. You do in the act of, you know, of making the beast with two backs. It's for pleasure. It is to take you higher. It makes you feel high. And so this aggression, all of this balance, all of this narkiness, all of this, I don't trust you, you don't trust me, you don't do this for me, you're in love with me. No, it all comes together sometimes in battle. We build like we did in The Offering. We build like we did in Nazareth. We build so many times to these breakdowns where often it's the culmination of conflict, of two different sides of the spectrum coming together, and then it explodes in, well, it explodes. I mean, the visualizer got very wet. Interesting that we don't get a post-coital chat here. Often I talk about the theory that, lots of fantastic, we're using Bohemian Rhapsody, we build and build and build and build, and then we get our orgasm. Some songs have multiple orgasms, musical orgasms, of course. The moment where you get to that release, we get it here with The Dead That I Row, and he does use that wonderful glottal fry, I think, maybe a little bit of false chord underneath there as well. And at the ending, we get, and it tails, and that's it. So there hasn't been any niceties after this. If indeed it is building to some sort of, whether it be a physical altercation, whether it be an argument, whether it be sex, whether it be, there's no talking afterwards. We get to this moment, it explodes, and then done. Which is a little bit rare for Sleep Token songs, which I think in a way makes Higher stand out even more. All right, to the lyrics. So, as I've already mentioned a little bit, I know that a lot of people believe that this is the first time that we hear Sleep speak, and I can absolutely buy that, particularly when diving into this first verse. You say you won't begin again. Capitulate and let me in, because I'm a fire and you are dry as bone. You are taking your time. You are killing me slow. And I know we instigate, go back and forth, lacerate, because you can remember only when you're alone. I am granting you more than the debt that I owe. So let's look at that whole structure, if you like, from Sleep's perspective. Because indeed, you say you won't begin again, capitulate and let me in. If Sleep has bullied Vessel in certain ways, and again, this can also be looked at as the shadow speaking up to the ego as well. You say you won't begin again because it's hard. That there's this whole air in this as well, in that I know not everyone agrees with me. Sometimes I think Sleep gets a bad rap, particularly when it is the personification or indeed deification of your shadow from a Jungian perspective. Indeed, the act of individuation, your ego battling with the shadow in order to become your essential self. Indeed, a big theory and a big idea that many people have, including myself, that all of Sleep Token is rooted in Jungian psychology. That ascension that potentially happens in Take Me Back to Eden is indeed the ascension that happens from individuation, from becoming one's essential self. But capitulate, capitulate, fall apart, and let me in. Let me in. Let this up, let the shadow up, or indeed let the whatever happened in Dark Signs. Maybe it's made Sleep for the first time realize, oh shit, fucking hell, I might lose this one. So now's the time to turn the screw. And maybe that's what this is. You say you won't begin again, capitulate and let me in. Because I am a fire. Maybe that sounds like it's been said by let's call Vessel the protagonist and Sleep the antagonist for the benefit of this. Because I am a fire. You've told me I'm a fire. And you're dry as bone. We already know I'm a fire. All right, I can do things to you, and you are so culpable to being set alight. You're dry, but you're taking your time, and you are killing me slow. Now, firstly, it's not slowly, which I think would be grammatically correct. Maybe not. You are taking your time, like something has been agreed between the two parties that we are going to get to this point, but instead you've decided that now you're going to take your time, and the longer it takes, the weaker I get, the more you destroy me. Indeed, from Sleep's perspective, that could be seen as that, because the deity needs the vessel to spread the gospel of sleep, as we know from the interviews and from the actual tangible information we have about the law of Sleep Token, that the vessel is necessary to spread the word of sleep in order to make them stronger. And I know, and so many times I've spoken about when Vessel says that he knows in the future, but that rather comes later in the Trilogy of Trauma and certainly even in Arcadia. I know we instigate. Now, that's curious because I would always think that one party instigates. One is the instigator. But in this respect, it's almost like, and I know we instigate. That voice, whoever is speaking for two people here, but also I don't think they've been asked to. This is rather one of the characters, one of the voices in this conversation, kind of taking the aggressor's perspective. And I know we instigate, go back and forth and lacerate. And there is just a little in there as well, because it would be quite weird. Go back and forth. lacerate. So you need a little bit of a lead into there. Lacerate, and the implication, or implying rather, that and would be there. So, and I know we instigate, go back and forth, lacerate. We this isn't just me. This isn't just me. This is you as well. And we both end up getting cut open. We both end up bleeding. We both end up striking out at each other, potentially being violent with one another. And then the fucking kicker, because you can remember only when you're alone that I am granting you more than the debt that I owe. Obviously, then the implication with the last word there, the debt that I owe you. I owe you a debt. Why would sleep owe vessel a debt? Well, maybe it's because of what happened potentially in EP2 in Nazareth. Maybe that something was asked of the vessel, something was asked of the protagonist by the antagonist. You need to do this. I need you to do this. Do this and you'll show me. But actually, did that put the antagonist in their debt by the vessel, by the protagonist doing that the dirty work? Now is sleep in their debt. So you remember only when you're alone, i.e. when we're not together. When we're together, it's like, no, absolutely, I'll do anything for you. And then all of a sudden the two parties are separated and we end up, and you remember only when you're alone. So when I'm not there, it is constantly going through your head that actually what I'm giving you now, maybe it's sex, maybe it's companionship, maybe it's a guarantee, if we're going to go into the law-heavy aspect of it, a guarantee that I will bring you, as we know from the interviews, that they will be promised riches and you will ascend, you will become potentially godlike. Well, who has the debt? You could, of course, spin this all on its head from Vessel's perspective. When Vessel is talking to a lover and saying, fuck me, you won't begin again. You won't let me in. And I'm a fire. I'm so fucking hot for you in a way, right? And you are dry as a bone. And you're taking why won't you admit to people that we're in a cup? Why do you always just fuck me in the night? Why do you leave in the morning? Why am I never enough? Why do you never tell your friends about us? You know, that sort of thing. And I know we instigate, we fight, we go back and forth, lacerate. I know all about the fucking lacerations because you can remember only when you're alone, only when I'm not with you at night, only when I'm not doing the nasty with you, only when I'm not your companion in the dark, that I'm granting you more than the debt that I owe, that maybe the vessel knows something about or the other character, or vice versa, that actually it's that trump card that the protagonist has in their back pocket, that just remember, if you don't tell people about us soon, if you don't you go all in this relationship, I have something in my back pocket. Now, what that is, no fucking idea. Answers on a postcard or in the comments, because it's YouTube, dumbass. And then we get into the nitty gritty, because I look for scarlet and you look for ultraviolet. So I look for blood. I look for the blood of man. I look for it. It isn't I am. I look for scarlet. I look for something organic, tangible. I look for some humanity in this, with the obvious insinuations of scarlet being representing blood here. But indeed, we're talking scarlet, ultraviolet, the end of the light spectrum as far as you can see. But you can see scarlet when you go to the other end of the spectrum where this argument is happening, where the other person is arguing from. You can't see ultraviolet. It is ethereal. It is godlike. It is angelic. Whereas the blood is the blood of a man, I think. And therefore, I'm looking for scarlet. I'm looking for this gutsy relationship. And you're looking for something far above. But what if it was the other way round? What if sleep was saying, I look for scarlet. I want blood. I want, as we've talked about before, sacrifice. And you look for ultraviolet. You've got your head in the clouds already, whereas I want work from you. I want tangible work. I want to see devotion. I want to see dedication. I want potentially a sacrifice. Now, that would lean in very, very nicely, of course, to the shadow talking to the ego. Maybe it is saying, look, I need fucking work in the dark here, or all of these dreams of you being ultraviolet, all these dreams of you being out there in the ether of ascending, they're never going to happen. You've got to do some fucking work in the dark here, sunshine. And we are exhausted by all this pretending. We just can't resist the violence. That's a very, very dark and very powerful line. Exhausted by all the pretending. We are exhausted by all the pretending. That's a funny one, because surely it should just be that the vessel is exhausted by the pretending. But if it's an acknowledgement from either side, regardless of what perspective this is coming from, it is we are exhausted and we just can't resist the violence, the battle, potentially the bloodletting, potentially something even more sexual, as we'll dive into later on in the Sleep Token discography, that perhaps there is some element of violence and sex, or aggressiveness and sexual release coming together, even consumption in a couple of songs as well. And you need a melody, I only need the silence. Well, let's think about that. Who needs the melody? Because one would presume that the vessel needs the melody. So that's from Sleep's perspective. You need the melody, I only need silence. You have to sing, you have to worship me, you need this, you need to be a vessel going on tour in the band called Sleep Token, musical theatre production, telling my story. I don't need that. I'm a fucking god. I don't need your piddly little melodies. You do that down there in order to worship me. But then spin it on its head. What if indeed this is from Vessel's perspective? And you need melody, as in you need my melody. If I stop singing, if I stop spreading the word of sleep, you cease to be. So does Sleep need the melody? And actually, he just needs the silence. The vessel doesn't need the melody. The melody is there to promote the deity, potentially. But each time we battle, the blood and the fury takes us a little higher. The acknowledgement there that we are in search of blood. There will be blood. But each time we battle, each time we are on opposite ends of the spectrum, potentially we fuck, whatever, the blood and the fury takes us a little higher. It is the endorphin release. It is dopamine mining that you are getting from, and some of you may have been in relationships in the past where one of you, or rather, no, maybe you've been in a relationship in the past where both of you have got off on arguing with one another, trying to one up one another, and maybe the argument, the conflict was a pleasurable part of that relationship, but that can't be maintained in the long term. That is a short-term thing. That is something that eventually will destroy one or both of the people in that relationship. So, moving on. With all that you believe, you still refuse to shelter me. Shelter mentioned, because I am a danger and you're a long way from home. You are one amongst many, but you're now on your own. I'm just going to talk about the first half of that for a moment. With all that you believe. So there is an acknowledgement there that at some point these two characters have spoken to one another, and one has potentially told the other one all of the things that I believe. Oh gosh, I maybe they're like, extolling virtue on that. Oh, how much? Let's say it's a vessel. So vessel has told Sleep, "God, I love you so much," or I want to do this, and I want to worship you. I want to do all. I believe. Belief is a dangerous thing. I've spoken about this before on previous videos. Belief can be a very dangerous thing. Belief can put you 6 feet under very quickly, depending on what you believe in. So, with all that you believe, you still refuse to shelter me. After all of the stuff you've told me, you don't give me a home and shelter. That means that something is happening outside of the character's life that means that they require shelter. Because otherwise, why would they need it? I mean, it could be as simple as an umbrella in the rain. But when one, there are shelters, that places that you go when you are potentially going to be attacked by someone, when you've got somebody following you, when you're in danger. So if you're in danger, and the person who says that they believe with all that you believe, with all that you've told me, you still refuse to shelter me. You still refuse to give me a home. The ego talking to the shadow, or potentially the other way round. Because I am a danger. Now that doesn't sound like it's, I am a danger. And you know this. It sounds like you've told me that I'm a danger. Because I'm a danger, right? And you're a long way from home. you were one amongst many. I'm sure it's were. You were one amongst many, but you're now on your own, because that wouldn't make grammatical sense. Bloody love when all these lyrics are not necessarily right. Because I'm a danger and you're a long way from home. Okay, let's look at it from Sleep's perspective firstly. Let's say that Sleep is speaking. With all that you believe, you still refuse to shelter me. You still don't really. I don't believe you. I don't believe that you are 100% all in here. Because I'm a danger, right? And you're a long way from home. Because there were many vessels. You were one amongst many. Once upon a time, there have been vessels before. In fact, maybe you even removed one of those vessels in Nazareth, and that would lead in slightly to the story that we've been telling in the law aspect. But you're now on your own. I have isolated you from everybody else, and now you want to stand up to me. I don't think that's a good idea, sunshine. We're back potentially to the voices behind the head in Nazareth. And then I believe that actually this does sound, particularly because of the vocal performance, the vocal dynamics that are added to this. And I hate, and Vessel loves putting an and at the beginning of a sentence because we're continuing a thought, but you're now on your own. And I hate the way you look at me when I am not understood. And I think this could come from both perspectives, certainly if we were going to break it down from a conversational perspective. Because you remember, only when you're alone, I'm granting you more than the debt that I owe. Could it be possible that at this point, they both realize that each of them owes a debt to one another? And that moment, like I said, like animals circling or fighters circling, and finally one had said their piece, one said their other piece, and now it's, I fucking hate the way you look at me. They both feel the same way. I hate that we're misunderstood. Some way, both of us believe that this could work, but I hate the way you look at me when I'm misunderstood. Because you can remember, rather, only when you're alone, I'm granting you more than the debt that I owe. I think there are arguments from either perspective here, and again, I do try and take quite an analytical perspective on this, looking at it a dramatic monologue or a conversation or whatever outside of the musical syntax, if you like. And we get "you won't begin again." Obviously, those builds: you won't begin again, and then the repetition of "because I look for scarlet and you look for ultraviolet, and we are exhausted by all this pretending, we just can't resist the violence." And then finally, the breakdown at the end with "the debt that I owe," which is repeated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then one final scream at the end. The repetition, the debt that I owe, the acknowledgement from whichever party is saying this, the acknowledgement over and over again that there is the debt that I owe, almost like one is sat alone, like it is said in the lyrics, sat repeating over and over again, the debt that I owe, the debt that I owe. The reminder, the brain worm that somebody has dropped in there in the back of the head, just reminding you about that debt. And when I'm not here, it's going to be all you can think about. There is vindictiveness in this. There is gaslighting in this. But there is also a tremendous, quote-unquote pop, rock, metal song. Again, don't genres, fuck genres. So, that's Higher by Sleep Token. I hope some of these thoughts or whatever help you on your journey to enjoy this song a little more. I have to say a thank you, obviously, to all on screen now, to all of my members on Ko-fi. These are the people who truly make it so that I can continue to make these videos. Obviously, you get exclusive videos. We've had some behind the scenes this week when I've been doing some commentary jobs. We've had mine and Artie's kind of travels up and down the country. Next week, we've got even more of that. Next week, we have even more streams. Next week, we have even more. I think the Gethsemane isolated vocals has already gone up on YouTube if you'd like to go and check that out. And next week, for my members on Ko-fi, not only will there be isolated vocal analysis in full from Higher, but also I'm working my way back through EP1, EP2, the bridging songs as well, all available. So thank you very much. If you do want to support me on Ko-fi, you can. You're a free-range human. Do what the fuck you want. Listen, I'm never going to beg for you to do that, but I'm hugely appreciative for everybody that does, and everybody who follows me on Twitch, and everyone. And if you want to like and subscribe and turn on the bell thing, I haven't got a bell turned on even for fucking anyone, so I would understand if you didn't. So yeah, shall see you next week for some more Sleep Token. As always, remember, you're a free range human. Do what the fuck you want. And if you can keep close to your heart that empathy is power, then you will make your life and hopefully everybody else's lives around you much nicer in what is a dark time in our history. Let's fucking enjoy the art and let's fucking put AI music in the bin. Hey? All right. Have a nice week. Bye.